Sox in the basement.
I mean, what a topsy-turvy, last 4 or 5 days of White Sox fandom, right? I think we talked when I was sitting up at the lake cottage on the last episode in the deluge of rain, and you can see that on the YouTube channel or the Facebook feed, but if you just listen, that's where I was at. And you could probably tell there was a little bit of a difference there. But I don't even think we got into the whole Joey Bart thing. We've got a guy who you go and you acquire as a catcher, and now he's hurt, and he's going to get back after Kyle Teel most likely. So that's interesting. You get the Ozzie Guillen ceremony that took forever to happen. Again, 21 years after he wins the World Series, we're finally retiring the number of this guy. I mean, if there's ever somebody who was worthy of number retirement, it was Ozzie Guillen. And I want to say right off the bat, Ed, I want to get your thoughts on this. To watch his number get unveiled and to see that it sits between one of the great Latin baseball players in White Sox history, also a shortstop in Louis Aparicio. And then on the other side of his name will be the guy he made team captain when that had never been a thing on the White Sox. He put the C on Paul Konerko and went out and won a World Series and ended an 88-year drought. And I just thought it was cool. And I hadn't thought about it. I mean, of course, that's where number 13 would fall. But I hadn't thought that he was going to be sitting in between those two guys for eternity. I thought that was amazing.
Yeah, I mean, all the way around, well overdue. And, I know that there was briefly some bad blood between the last front office and Ozzie, especially after he was unceremoniously let go from the team. But, to not have a guy who played here forever, wasn't a Hall of Famer by any stretch of the imagination, but was a guy that he was here. He was just a big part of this team for so long, and then comes back and wins you the World Series. They don't win the World Series without him. No,
I don't think they do. A lot of that is Ozzie Guillen. That's Ozzie Guillen in the year before identifying which guys he didn't need on his team. That's when Kenny was listening to what Ozzie wanted and was working in support as a general manager for what he wanted to do. I mean, he guides that team through a horrible swoon when Cleveland's catching up to him. And he finds a way to finesse that, get him back on track. I mean, I said this the other day to my kids because we're watching the ceremony, and I said something about that guy right there should have been up there a long time ago. And my 11-year-old goes, actually, this is how it goes. Then the White Sox start playing the game, and I'm enjoying watching the Sox. And my 11-year-old goes, is this the best White Sox team ever? And I said, no, this is not the best White Sox team ever. This is a young team that's doing really well. I'm excited about this team. It's a fun team. But you want to know who the best White Sox team is ever? The 2005 Chicago White Sox. And to be honest with you, I will make the argument, one of the greatest baseball teams ever assembled. And I will make that claim saying, find me the amount of teams in Major League Baseball history that went wire to wire in first place, never relinquishing it for 162 games, and went 11-1 through the postseason. Now, and the reason that people are laughing oh, come on, man, 27 Yankees, there's a lot of teams that were better in the 05 team. Yeah? Well, that's a credit to Ozzie Guillen right there, that his team went wire to wire in 05 and went 11-1 through the postseason. The man got his due and he deserved it. And I was super happy to see him get to finally have that number retired because he deserved that for a long time.
Yeah, it's one of those frustrations I think I have with the White Sox on occasion where, somebody like Ozzie, who has been such an important, going back to his playing days is one thing, but since he became manager in 04, okay, he has been such an important part of this franchise. Even when he was gone briefly, but he came back, he's been an analyst. He's been one of the faces of this franchise, and he is singularly one of the most important figures anywhere in the franchise history. I mean, just looking at everything that's happened to the White Sox in their history, The fact is that they don't have too many World Series victories, and Ozzie Guillen presented them with one of them in a dominating one. I mean, he is in a lot of ways, and let's just watch the comment line light up on this one. He's our Ditka, is really what Ozzie is.
He is our Ditka. That's exactly
He's
what he
our
is.
Ditka.
That's exactly what he is. Okay, I'm not. People can be upset about that. I think that's wonderful. That's a great comparison.
Agree with me. Yeah.
Nothing but personality. Got a championship when for some reason it seems impossible for anybody else to get one with the franchise. That's what Ditka is with the Bears.
And Super Bowl. Dominating one. Yeah. And a dominating one. Yeah. Right?
Caught lightning in a bottle and knew how to hold on to that lightning throughout the entire season. And yeah, it kind of comes apart later on. You don't get more trips back to the World Series. But don't take away from what he did. This episode of Sox in the Basement, and every episode brought to you proudly by Hyatt Home Medical Equipment. Switch to a new age of life. Keep mom and dad, grandma and grandpa out of assisted living, and make so they can get around on their own and live independently with stair lifts, ramps, grab bars, lift chairs, and even bathroom remodeling. Hyatt's going to work with your insurance. They have 0% financing for qualified individuals. And if you use a CPAP machine, I know so many people who do, I was kind of surprised you don't use one. You got nothing but problems. And when we stayed in the hotel in Milwaukee, you didn't bring out any equipment. I thought I was going to get to talk about CPAP machines.
I don't snore, but I am surprised you don't use one.
Yeah, I snore a lot, don't I?
You do.
Well, that's because of the bourbon. There was a lot of bourbon that we had that night in Milwaukee. We went to go visit a bunch of friends from back in the radio days, and Ed roomed with me. And I know I woke up in the morning, I was like, what? The horrible noises that probably came out of me he had to deal with the entire night. If you're unhappy with your CPAP machine or your vendor, switch now, get supplies directly mailed to you, test them out in their showroom, the latest and greatest continuous glucose monitors, and so much more. See it all at hhme.com.
Although at one point you did roll over and put a pillow on both sides of your head, and I was awake and I was completely silent. So I was like, wow, that's some sensitive hearing, man. You must be hearing something completely different.
It's like I knew that I was bothering you. And I was like, I should smother myself in pillows so poor Ed can sleep. I want to get into the idea that we've sent Noah Schultz down, and I'm not exactly sure who's going to be the fifth starter on this team. I can't find it anywhere. Maybe it was said someplace. Yeah. Is it going to be Fetty? I mean, you basically had Tanner McDougal working out of the bullpen, so I don't think you're going to bring him back to being a starter. Maybe you have other plans. I don't know. Winkleman Gonzalez, we hardly knew you. You've been lost on waivers to Miami Marlins. Speaking of a former Miami Marlin, Tim Anderson's getting a day. And I don't know how I feel about it. Like, I'm going to be really honest. I know this is going to be annoying to some people. I don't really like Tim Anderson. I used to really like Tim Anderson. Like, I used to be a big Tim Anderson guy. But I watched a guy who, by his own fault, nobody did this to him. He was an adult and he made his choices. By his own fault, created his own personal problems off the field. And then allowed that to eat into his ability to play baseball, it seemed. And then fell off. And to be honest with you, in my opinion, is the poster child, one of the poster children of a failed rebuild. I put as much blame on Tim Anderson as I do for other players that I feel let me down as a fan during that time. And now on September 17th, they're going to bring back the Southside uniform. I love the Southside uniform. But I think it's really interesting that we got to the anniversary of the Field of Dreams game, which is an amazing anniversary, amazing home run. I was up cheering for that. Great moment for him. And it was all over the internet, and it was as if somebody in the PR department said, hey, Tim, have you actually officially retired? Do you think you could do it? We'll get you on a Zoom call. We'll make a big deal out of it. We'll declare a day. We'll wear a uniform. We could probably make some money off of this, and we'll have a little ceremony before the game. Like, it seems the timing of it feels contrived. And here's the point that I want to make. I don't even think he's in the Hall of Very Good. Like, we're talking about a guy that over his career had 15 wins above replacement, according to Baseball Reference. And I would ask you, when Yoan Moncada calls it quit, are you going to give him a day? Because it's the same. When Luis Robert Jr. calls it quits one day, are you going to give him a day? Because it's the same. Now, I know he won a batting title. He had a Silver Slugger. He was in the All-Star game 2 times. But let's just compare him to one of his White Sox contemporaries in Jose Abreu, who was worth twice as much than Tim Anderson in his career. And before you say, well, he played longer, Chris. He played longer. The way it comes out per at bat it's pretty close. I mean, Abreu's only got about 1,600 more at bats, and yet somehow he's got basically a 30 WAR. Much more valuable player. I would argue with anybody about that. All right. Yoan Moncada got to the same wins above replacement, and Luis Robert Jr. got to the same wins above replacement as Tim Anderson, playing less. Tim Anderson had a great stretch, I would say about 2.5, was maybe 3 years. Fell apart in that last year where he, I want to say in 2022, he makes the All-Star game, but the second half was terrible. He was a replacement level player. He had a couple of years where he was really good, and then he fell off. I mean, he was an okay ball player who did some really nice things that were kind of fun for a couple of years. And then he's part of the reason things kind of fall apart. I think the only thing that I'm excited about on September 17th is seeing the jersey, but I don't get it, right? And I think the juxtaposition of seeing how long you make a guy like Ozzie Guillen wait for his moment. And then a couple days later to announce Tim Anderson Day. I mean, maybe I'm just an old fart. Maybe the young guys will tell me you stop yelling at a cloud, old man. But is it that there just are not enough heroes from that time period in White Sox history? That there's a generation that's the best that they got? Because, I mean, that's kind of how it feels. Outside of Abreu, I guess the next best player of the last 10 years before this group came along, which is going to accomplish far more than the group that Tim Anderson was in. You already feel it. You can already see it. Maybe they'll win a playoff series, something that he didn't do. Right? I mean, it just feels first of all, it feels weird that it's so soon after the bad things, right? We've forgiven him very quickly for being such a letdown. And I just don't understand why we're having a Tim Anderson Day when we have this young group that really is the answer to the last few years of bad, of which Tim Anderson is a part of bringing on. Am I not? If I'm nuts, I'm nuts, Ed. I mean, as I thought about this all day today, I was like, people are going to be mad at me for saying this because everybody in the world's out there throwing flowers at the guy. And I'm like, you announced that you were retiring because nobody wanted you.
You mentioned something. You're comparing him to Jose Abreu and how long they played and everything. Let's keep in mind, Jose Abreu, as we're sitting here, is 39 years old. Tim Anderson's 33. Okay. So Anderson's career could still be going on well into his late 30s, the way Abreu's was, if he was able to play at a high enough level. And he hasn't been able to play at a high enough level since he left the White Sox, and he fell off while he was with a member of the White Sox. He was a star, and he was one of the faces of Major League Baseball for a couple of years.
He was huge. He was like a flash, like a musical artist that comes out and takes the world by storm for a couple of years, and then never could come up with a second album.
Right. And that's a good analogy for it, because
he's Hootie and the Blowfish.
Well, you know what though? Darius Rucker went on to another career in country radio. So I don't know.
He's not even Hootie and the Blowfish.
Yeah, he's not even Hootie.
I'll think of someone. Keep on with your point. I'll try to think of who they are. Who he is.
There's plenty of one-hit wonders out there to compare him to, but he's a guy who for a minute there was extremely important because he was one of the faces of Major League Baseball, and for good reason, right? There is a push in baseball to try and reinvigorate the black community into the game. And Tim Anderson spearheaded that and was really a part of that. And that's a good thing. So you can celebrate him for that stuff. But his on-field accomplishments, not legendary by any stretch of the imagination. You're right. He is also the face of the failure of the last rebuild, of a teardown and rebuild that was ill-advised, ill-planned, and ill-executed, and really wasn't done with any measure of scouting or any measure of a plan, it seemed like, other than let's get some really big names that MLB pipeline tells us is big or the international pipeline tells us is big and go forward. And Tim Anderson was supposed to be a leader on that team. He shrunk back from that duty from what a lot of people were saying at the time. Like you said, he had off-field problems, and let that get into it. And one of the defining moments of when the White Sox as a franchise became a joke again was him squaring off against Jose Ramirez in the middle of the diamond at a play at second base and just getting decked. Yeah, and Ramirez coming out on top.
It was a weird decision to do that.
Yes.
To get into that fight at that moment was also a very weird decision. I decided what Bandy is. He's the Spin Doctors.
Okay, there you go.
Right? One big album, right? People were like, "This is the future of music." That disappeared on you, right?
And they vanished. Their second album.
They were side stage at Bourbon and Beyond last year, and like I went over there. There were 25 people were watching them, and I went and saw that.
And all they wanted to hear was Little Miss Can't Be Wrong and Two Princes and done.
That's it.
So yeah. So I'm not against, at some point, Tim Anderson getting his day. I agree with you that the timing is a little odd. You don't need to rush to do it. I think one of the things that they're doing is sitting there going, well, it is a good excuse to bring back the better City Connect jerseys, because Tim Anderson and those jerseys do go hand in hand. And a lot of the guys that are also hand in hand with those jerseys are guys you're not going to celebrate. You're not going to bring Luis Robert Jr. back, to your point. Plus, he's still playing. And it's just an unnecessary thing to try and... It's like there's a part of the White Sox organization that is still in, we've got to do anything to get the fans here mode, not understanding that
you don't need to do this.
You don't need to do this right now.
They're there.
We're in playoff baseball, okay?
The White Sox are there. And White Sox fans are there.
To the game.
White Sox fans are at Cork and Carry at the park at 33rd and Princeton in the shadow of the ballpark before the game, after the game, during the game. That's your home base for White Sox pregame, postgame, and in-game viewing parties, okay? They got an award-winning menu of burgers, ballpark favorites. They got an extensive bar with a rotation of craft beers, familiar favorites, spirits, and wines. They are the place to be. This is where you bring the family. This is where you get them fed. The kids love the fact they bring it out on the little home plate, like the plates.
It's cool. That is cool.
I like the prices and the service and the fact that I'm going to be able to have a good time and not have to worry about making it over to the game. Okay. And I like the fact that after a game, it's the spot to celebrate. It's clearly the spot to celebrate after the game. Like when you're feeling good and you don't want to go home yet. Cork and Carry at the park. Okay. 33rd and Princeton in the shadow of the ballpark. See more at corkandcarry.com.
When you've taken 2 out of 3 of the Guardians and put the Tigers in second place.
I know. And that's the thing that I want to focus on. Like, I'm sorry. It felt forced. I don't know what got me upset about this today. Right?
Because
it felt forced. It was like, oh, social media is buzzing about the anniversary of the Field of the Dreams game. Huh. What's he up to these days? Nothing. Well, let's see if we can get him to say he's retiring, and then we can do a thing with this jersey because it's something we could. I mean, like that's like it's the cynic in me that has been around media types for decades, who's like, why? And then I had to sit there and say to myself, like, maybe I'm misremembering this. Maybe I'm wrong. And I start bringing up all of his stuff, and I mean, I'm seeing people on social media talking about how like, oh, Tim Anderson, future Hall of Famer. I've seen that. Those people are insane. He won't even make it off the ballot the first year. He won't even qualify to be on it the second year. Okay?
No.
I mean, like,
no.
The guy had a couple of good years. He had a couple of good years. There were times where he was super exciting. He also had a real problem going in the hole behind third base defensively. And I didn't like the way that it ended, and I felt like he let down his fan base. He let his fans down. And it just seems like it hasn't been long enough for people to forget that. I don't know if he's getting the reception they think he's getting on the 17th of September.
That's the thing is again, I think what gets me about this is there are moments still, even though we are winning in the division, even though Chris Getz has put together a good squad, flawed but good. Okay. And they are a likable team and they're fun to watch and it's exciting and the fan base is reinvigorated, as we always have said we would be, right? You put a winner on the field and we will show you the love, and that's what's going on. There is a segment of that organization that just doesn't get out of its own way sometimes and finds itself in a bubble. And yes, the Field of Dreams game was exciting. And yes, Tim Anderson's walk-off was a massive moment in that. There was a huge moment in that, just as much as, him getting set up by Liam Hendricks failing to get the save. But, let's not forget that. But Tim Anderson's walk-off, massive moment in that.
Massive
Absolutely.
Moment. But I feel like somebody got whipped up watching the highlights and were like, we should do a Tim Anderson thing.
And that's the problem, okay? Is that there's a segment of the organization, there's a segment, I think, of the fan base that still just looks wistfully at those moments and overruns them because, like you said, there's a gap, such huge gaps in this franchise's history between truly great moments that Tim Anderson's home run in the Field of Dream games ultimately doesn't really mean anything towards winning ball games, right? It was one game, but in terms of dramatic moments, it's one of the good dramatic moments. It's a cool national event. It sprungboard Tim Anderson and the White Sox back into some sort of national conversation. And the last thing that had happened prior to that was them winning the World Series in 2005. So there's a big jump, big gap in there. Just
but here's the thing. I think you just illustrated it perfectly. If a Tim Anderson comes along in a franchise that's successful regularly, right? And he has the years he had on the Dodgers or on the Yankees, and there wasn't a huge gap before he got here and a huge gap after he got here where you were terrible and never had any good moments, would he be as big of a deal?
No, his retirement would be met with, they'd show him on the screen, they'd invite him, put him in a box, put him in Jerry's box.
He'd wave.
Okay? He'd wave, and the Sox nerd would have some interesting tidbits on him on the screen.
I think that's the difference.
That's the difference.
I think you just wrap that up perfectly. Let's talk about the team as they are right now. The Tigers are chasing them now. The Tigers are, and
the Tigers are not going to be chasing them for long.
It's the weirdest thing to me because they traded away Skubal, and yet they've won 7 of their last 10, and they found their way back into this, and they're only 2 games under 500, and they're 3.5 back from the White Sox. And I know I'm supposed to be worried about them, and yet somehow I'm not. Because I just watched the Sox after they had a terrible week come home, lose the first game to the Guardians, and I'm like, oh no. Yeah. And then they find a way to win the next 2 and say, nope, this is our division. That I think is the biggest story of the week. You had a terrible time with the Red Sox. You lose the first game when you get back home on Friday night. Ja Rule doesn't show up. I know that hurt deeply. And then you find a way to turn it around and win the next 2 games, take 2 out of 3 from the Guardians and say, no, we're not giving anybody this division. That was the big thing for me.
Right. And you have a Guardians team now on their heels where they're having team meetings to go over what just happened. Okay. There's goofiness in the first game with Will Venable seemingly making a mistake, although I think some people would sit there and go, no, he had just had about enough of Noah Schultz and was coming out to get him no matter what.
I mean, right? They did send him down.
They did send him right down, didn't they? And there's something to be said about Will Venable just getting frustrated, maybe forgetting for a moment that Zach Bove had already been out there, but maybe he knew and he just went, I'm going to act like I'm an idiot, and then I'll get my guy to warm up.
Or it was like when you got your kids driving you nuts, right? You got that one kid in the house that's driving you nuts, right? Your wife just said something, and now you've contradicted her because you're just so angry, and you've screwed up the whole thing, right? Or you double punish. You're like, hey, I'm taking away television. Like, it was like he was so frustrated he forgot what was going on around him because he was watching that train wreck again.
Just so mad.
Yeah.
So mad at Noah Schultz. Yeah. And so, and to a certain degree, he got maybe saved by Davis Martin running into a rainstorm on Sunday. But there's a lot of resilience there to sit there and say, we're going to come back from a debacle on Friday night, and we're going to take the next 2 games in pretty convincing fashion and put the Guardians on their heels. The fact that the Tigers are now in second, I think, is just a casualty of the Guardians and Twins going for it at the deadline and then completely falling flat as they come out of it. So, kudos to the White Sox for not completely falling flat and having the resilience to come back. And this team continues to show that they really do, I think, have the guts and have, enough in them to continue to try and win and continue to try and fight and not give up, not fall into these traps, because it was very easy, very, very easy for them to get down if the Red Sox beat the heck out of them for 3 straight games. I know they have that slugfest back and forth that goes 13 innings, but honestly, that's a heartbreaker. They could have come out against the Guardians and just absolutely played dead and let the Guardians take first place, and the White Sox still be fighting for a wild card. We'd still be excited for them. But instead, they are showing the resilience. They are showing good stuff. Now, there are questions. There are questions about the rotation because Noah Schultz is down. Eric Fetty is apparently a member of your bullpen, and we don't know who's starting.
Unless you're bringing Fetty back out there because he's still stretched out.
And that would be the thought, or unless you're going to
create a pitcher, a Hagen Smith, Tanner McDougal, like pitcher. I don't know what the plan is. I'm waiting to see what it is. It'll probably be out by the time the show gets out. But it's interesting. Look,
there will be something figured out. I mean,
I'm going to give credit to Will Venable again. He is really taking a young team that's not quite ready for this on paper. And he has made decisions, whether I agree with him or not, you agree with him or not, fans agree with him or not, where he's basically said, okay, here's the deal. The only way I'm taking this young team to the end is we're going to do things like create baseball players now in the ether, essentially. He's got 4 straight platoons going on right now. Like, he is. Antonacci, Benintendi, Peters, and Romo, they're together when you're going up against a righty. And Caro, Acuna, Grichuk, and Doyle are out there against lefties. Without fail. I mean, put it up on a grid. It's a perfect pattern.
And to a certain degree, it works because Grichuk continues to continues to produce, and Brenton Doyle, since he's come over, I mean, first of all, he is as advertised in the field and on the base paths. I mean, that part I don't think was ever in doubt. But he's getting on, he's hitting, he's doing okay, and so it's you're sitting here going, other than the catcher position, which if I don't know if Joey Bart does anything honestly before he gets his hand broken, but or if he doesn't get his hand broken. But I mean, other than the catching position, the platooning has been working. I think Will Venable is going to show how good of a manager he is managing this pitching staff going forward, because you mentioned it well before the All-Star break, and it's been hit upon episode after episode for us that some of the young guys, a lot of these guys are running up against their innings limit. They're going to start to get tired. And you got to figure out who in the minors can help you, because the trade deadline's passed and you got one workhorse in Luis Castillo, and you did not get a second guy to go out there. You've got Jose Urquidy. You've got Shane Smith is down there. You've got not a lot, but you've got Eric Fetty still in the bullpen. So they'll have to manufacture pitching going forward and manufacture some sort of platoon system. Now, if that is giving Smith some starts, Hagen Smith some starts, and then having Eric Fetty or having McDougal back him up and go bulk, and that's the plan, that could be okay. Or, that could be okay, because if you can get 3 or 4 out of Hagen Smith, if that's all you want to give him, if you want to keep him on a pretty strict pitch count and see what he can do, and then give Fetty the bulk of the work. And if Eric Fetty comes out and goes 4 or 5 in a bulk role, that's a bullpen saving day. Okay. Just as much as if Eric Fetty starts and goes 6 innings and you got to use 2 or 3 pitchers on the back end. I don't know that there's going to be one set answer going forward. I think what we're going to see is a very patchwork set of starters. I think you're going to see some bullpen days. I think you're going to see guys shuttled up and down a little bit that have options. I think that, Getz and Venable are going to be playing with this. And what they're going to plan on doing is trying to figure out who are those big 3, who are the 3 guys that at the end of the season, when you go into the playoffs, that you're going to trust. Right now, we know it'd be Anthony Kay, Sean Burke, and I guess you'd have to say Davis Martin or Luis Castillo, although both of them come with question marks. We'll see what happens when we get to October. But in the meantime, piecing it together, patching it together, giving guys some rest. You might see some phantom injuries to put some guys on the IL so they can get a guy up here. It's going to be hard to watch as a fan, where you want to have 05, where you want to have that starting 5 that are just going to go out there, and you just know what kind of game, what a Burley game is, what a Contreras game is, what a Freddie game is. You know exactly what you're going to get with John Garland. You know exactly what you're going to get with either El Duque or Brandon McCarthy, right? They had 6 guys for most of that season. I think you're going to see some days that are going to look funky. You're going to see some days where you're sitting there going, why is Schweitzer starting? What? You know what? They called him up, but Sandlin's back. Why is Sandlin back?
It's gonna be such an amazing thing to kind of watch a young team that needs that kind of finessing. We're talking about the retirement of Ozzie Guillen's number, and I've said it several times. He's got a lot more to prove. He's got a lot more years ahead of him, I think, as a manager. But Will Venable's showing me that at least he's a thinking manager, and it's going to be really interesting. He's getting tested right away this year, and if he can figure this out as they continue to get better, he should have no problem figuring out the next year and the next year and the next year, and that's exciting.
Sox in the basement. Sox in the basement. Sox in the basement.
Sox in the Basement. Heard everywhere podcasts can be found, and always on soxinthebasement.com.